Hello and welcome to What to Expect When You're Expecting During COVID-19. I'm your host, Ivy Hartman. Now, we started this series to help ease your mind and give you up-to-date information about the current pandemic and how it will affect those who are pregnant. And we've asked Dr. Eboni January, a board-certified OBGYN, author, and St. Louis area native, to help us with some of these tough questions and shed some light on some of this information. Now, Dr. January, we've talked about preventative measures in our previous episode, but we know that prenatal visits are a part of pregnancy, right? And so how will those visits be different now during a pandemic? And should women even go to those?
Ivy, that is a very great question. Doctors' offices have definitely switched things up across the board. Especially as it pertains to pregnant women, because that's a visit where, like I said before, women come to those visits and for good reason. But now there's definitely a shift in how we are orchestrating those visits. So one, I definitely recommend women call their physician to see what are their new guidelines that are in place. Very, very, very important. If you are high risk, if you are concerned about something that is going on in your pregnancy, you definitely should go. Obviously, even if it's emergent, the doctor's office may not necessarily be the place to be, but even still, the one thing that you need to do, call ahead. Definitely call ahead to see, one, what are my guidelines? Should I even come in? Doctor's offices are still seeing patients, but there have been limitations, especially with regards to visitors. So that's a huge deal. And, across the board, not just with pregnant women in the hospitals, it has been quite the ordeal trying to accommodate visitors and limit exposure to, children and women. So definitely calling ahead to make sure that they're saying, okay, let's have, maybe let's do a telemedicine visit, which is something very similar to what you and I are doing right now. Everyone's on, the Zoom calls, and telemedicine has been across the board. You have things like Teledoc. That's definitely been very useful as it pertains to pregnancies and visits across the board. So some people are instituting those things if it's not something where, okay, let me see, you may have to come in. And it's a way to triage. Telemedicine is a way to triage, to say, okay, let me see you. I've had to do it. Let me hear your breathing, because people will call with these prolonged coughs, and I'm like, okay, well, let's get on a video call to see. So it's a way to triage, to say, okay, maybe you should come in for this prenatal visit, or we can wait, another week or two, come in for X, Y, and Z, these reasons. But as it pertains to actually going in, no adults. It's best to not have an adult visitor with you. I'm, obviously as an OBGYN, I'm very empathetic to women who are parents and have other children. So sometimes those children do have to come to the visits, and that's okay. I do recommend, just in general, to put a mask, on your children, just in case. You never know. These things could linger in the air. Kids touch their faces all the time. And so that's a way for them to minimize touching the areas where they will likely get infected.
Well, you brought up a great point in terms of, having multiple children, right? So if it's my first child, I'm expecting second, third, et cetera on, what happens if one of my kids gets sick with the coronavirus from COVID-19? I mean, and I'm pregnant, and we're talking about self-quarantining. What does that look like?
So same deal, hand washing. If you have to, like, for instance, there's some who still may have babies in diapers, putting on gloves, putting on a mask as much as you can. Now, obviously, some people may not necessarily have help at home, or, significant other has to go out and, still provide, but it's still fine for you to put on a mask and wear gloves if you're changing diapers, if you're breastfeeding. Some people still breastfeeding and have, and are pregnant. So you're still able to do those things. You just have to exercise good judgment. And that means hand washing. That means not touching up the face. That means wearing a mask if you do have someone who's sick with it.
One last question, doctor. Will the symptoms look different in a pregnant woman than in somebody else?
Not necessarily. They'll still have the shortness of breath. They'll still have a cough, the runny nose, in some cases, gastrointestinal issues. There have been one or two cases of kids who come in with really bad belly pain, but in general, pretty similar symptoms. Now, what we do know about how women respond to viruses that are not COVID-19 is that they do respond in a more severe fashion. So we don't know though. And so we're operating under the premise that they may respond in a more severe fashion because of how they've responded to previous viral illnesses and pregnancy.
So we're back to that case-by-case situation.
It is a case-by-case situation. There are times, for instance, when I've discovered comorbidities while a woman has been pregnant. So you don't know, sometimes you don't necessarily know that you have something. For instance, let's say fibroids, for example. Many women don't know that they have fibroids until they get an ultrasound for pregnancy. And some women don't know that they may be pre-diabetic until they're evaluated in pregnancy. So there's so many different things that we don't know. It's a case-by-case basis. And that's even with regards to the type of medications that people respond to.
Well, we've certainly tackled some very vivid and real scenarios today, but our goal on what to expect when you're expecting during COVID-19 is not really to stress you out, but hopefully you feel more empowered with information and to help you through your pregnancy during this pandemic. And on our next episode, we'll talk about what to do in the event that you become ill. And in future episodes, we'll also talk about changing or modifying that birthing plan or delivery plan. So if you're joining us for the first time, look for our other videos on what to expect when you're expecting during COVID-19 on all our media channels, outlets, including YouTube for STL TV, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you, Doctor. And as we leave you today, please breathe deeply, find your calm and your center, and be well.